Good. So, how's everybody doing? I am Larry McCullough. I am the programming coordinator here at Eyewitness Palestine, and we are a organization, and our mission is to provide transformational education programs that inspire and train participants to become accountable, lifelong social justice advocates in Palestine solidarity movements and within their communities. And we do this through our educational webinars like these and our in-person delegations that we have coming up. If you would like to get notifications about these, you can email us at info@eyewitnesspalestine.org. So before we start, I just want to highlight a few of our upcoming events and delegations that we have coming up. So these events will be up on our calendars, and we will update our calendar, our newsletter, and our website soon. So just mark your calendars for these events. So on November 13th, we have We All Live in Gaza, which is a screening for a documentary that will be coming out soon. We also have our fundraising webinar with Joe Groves, who is the founder of Eyewitness Palestine, and that will be on November 18th. We also have our Right to Education Under Occupation webinar with CUNY University that will host students from Berzit University and students from Al-Quds, and that will be on November 20th. And we also have a webinar November 27th that will be a virtual delegation that will be on November 27th, and it will feature the Ahmadi refugee camp in Ramallah. And we have two delegations coming up, one in November, which is a general delegation, and one in December, which is a Black and Indigenous delegation. And applications for the November delegation ends today. And for the December delegation, deposits and applications are due this coming up Friday. So now I would like to introduce our ED, our Executive Director, Nancy.
Hi, welcome everybody. Thank you, Larry. Thank you so much to the whole team for putting this together. Thank you to Susan Abulhawa, who has been doing so much great work and took the time out to join us today. This is a really important webinar, not just to talk about what is happening, but to also support the Phoenix Writing School that Suzanne started in Gaza. It gives the children just the tiniest outlet, for education, but also, as many people know, writing is part of healing. And it's so important. Although there is no way to heal the trauma right now, this is a long process, and I think this is just one tiny step in that process, and hopefully can grow from here. And inshallah, as soon as there is an end to this genocide and this occupation, we can do more and more. So I'm going to show a clip from Democracy Now, where Susan was featured, talking a little bit about her trip in Gaza, and then we will come back and speak to Susan Abulhawa. So stay with us and
Now, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. A UN convoy of food trucks trying to bring 200 tons of food into northern Gaza was turned back by the Israeli military today. A convoy of 14 trucks waited for 3 hours at the Wadi Gaza checkpoint in central Gaza before it was turned away by the Israeli military and later stopped by a large crowd of desperate people who, quote, looted the food, according to the World Food Program. This comes as Israeli forces have repeatedly opened fire on Palestinians seeking to get aid in northern Gaza, killing at least 119 people in the most deadly attack February 29th. Hunger's reached catastrophic levels in Gaza. The Palestinian Health Ministry said today the death toll from malnutrition and dehydration has risen to 18, adding, quote, the famine's deepening and will claim thousands of lives if the aggression is not halted and humanitarian and medical aid is not immediately brought in, unquote. Children, pregnant women, those with chronic illnesses are most vulnerable. Meanwhile, the Israeli bombardment continues with shelling and airstrikes today in cities across the Gaza Strip, including in Rafah, Khan Yunis, Deir al-Balah, and elsewhere. At least 30,700 Palestinians have been killed, over 72,000 wounded in Gaza over the past 5 months. Nearly the entire population has been displaced from their homes. For more, we go to Cairo, Egypt, where we're joined by Susan Abulhawa, a Palestinian novelist, poet, and activist, author of several books, best known for her debut novel, Mornings in Jenin, an international bestseller translated into 32 languages, considered a classic in Palestinian literature. She's the founder and co-director of Playgrounds for Palestine, a children's organization, and the executive director of Palestine Rights Literature Festival. She just returned from Gaza after spending 2 weeks there, as now in Cairo. Susan, welcome to Democracy Now! If you can talk about what you saw, you have written, some are eating stray cats and dogs, which are themselves starving and sometimes feeding on human remains that litter streets where Israeli snipers pick off people who dare to venture within the sight of their scopes. The old and weak have already died of hunger and thirst. Describe your trip.
So that part of the essay is in the northern region where nobody really is allowed to go. Trying to venture into the north is a suicide mission. There are tanks and snipers positioned, and anyone trying to get there is basically killed. As you just mentioned, aid trucks are not getting in either. They are intentionally stopped, and it's an intentional starvation, basically. I was primarily in the south, in Rafah. I was able to go to Khan Yunis and to Nusayrat and a few other places in the middle region, but that became increasingly more dangerous. I want to say that the reality on the ground is infinitely worse than the worst videos and photos that we're seeing in the West. There is beyond people being buried alive en masse in their homes, their bodies being shredded to pieces, these kinds of videos and images that people are seeing. Beyond that, there is this daily massive degradation of life. It is a total denigration of a whole society that was once high functioning and proud.
This is Democracy Now!
Thank you so much. There is a longer clip if you guys care to watch. We will send out some links to the videos that we're showing. Before we get into our talk, we are going to show some videos. Christian will kindly share some videos of the Phoenix School in Gaza that Susan started. Just one moment.
What does it mean I like it chicken? What does it mean? ماذا تعني I like? Yes, you are good. Saturday, Sunday,
There's one more video, and I apologize if you missed the audio for the start of that last one.
آمن يقينا لا مستحيل لا مستحيل بالأمل آمن يقينا آمن يقينا لا مستحيل ما دمنا نحيا بالأمل لا مستحيل آمن يقينا لا مستحيل لا مستحيل بالأمل آمن يقينا
تتناثر الكلمات حبرا وحبا على صفائح الأوراق لكل من علمني ومن أزال غيمة جهل مررت بها برياح من أعاد رسم ملامحي وتصحيح عثراتي. أبعث تحية شكر وتقدير لمدرسة العنقاء ومؤسسة ملاعب فلسطين التي أرجعت لي حلمي التي تحطم في هذه الحرب التي لا نعلم متى ستنتهي. علمتني المدرسة أن لا أدخل مهاراتي وأن أستمر في طموحي رغم كل شيء. شكرا مدرسة العنقاء ومؤسسة ملاعب فلسطين.
Oh, thank you, Christian. I get so emotional, Susie. Why?
I hear you.
I know you do too. It's just because you meet these children, right? And first of all, one of the reasons that Eyewitness was able to get into Gaza, was we were referred by Susie. And I was able to see her in Cairo when she had just got out before I went in. And so it's difficult because you look at these kids and I mean, obviously the ones in the school you have more contact with, but all the kids that you meet there, it's like, are they all right? Are they alive? Where are they? Did they, did they have to leave? There's just so many questions and feelings, watching it. So Amy Goodman basically gave your bio, but I'm gonna say it again because you've done so much. Susan Abulhawa is a novelist, poet, essayist, scientist, mother, and activist. Her debut novel, Mornings in Jenin, was an international bestseller, translated into 30 languages, and is considered a classic in Palestinian literature. Its reach and sales has made Abulhawa the most widely read Palestinian author. She is a founder of Playgrounds for Palestine, a children's organization dedicated to uplifting Palestinian children. And she's also the co-chair of Palestine Rights, the first Northern American Palestinian literature festival. And for anybody that doesn't know about Playgrounds for Palestine, we will be sending out a link, but I definitely urge you to look it up. They have been doing great work for years and years. And play and writing, I know people don't think of that as like, traditional therapy, but it really is. It really, really is. And so they've made a huge impact for years on children all over Palestine, and we want to help continue that. And so we are donating all the money that came through this webinar, and we are trying to reach a $6,000 goal to be able to help operations for a month for this school in Gaza. So whatever people can give, we're going to post a link again in the chat. If you can just scroll down, because you've already signed up for the webinar, you can scroll down and it just says add a donation. If you do that, we would truly appreciate it. And please do give whatever you can. I know, again, I tell you in every webinar that, if we can make a difference to one person that is on the ground in Gaza, it means something. And so we'll continue to try and help wherever we can. And this is part of our mutual aid partnership webinars that Eyewitness has been doing for a year now. Susie, I want to ask you, Habibi, welcome and thank you again so much. I know we don't want thanks as Palestinians for the stuff that we do, but thank you for continuing, because we all know, especially as Palestinians, how difficult it is to even just get up every day and feel like we're making a difference, but you are. And so I just want to start, just for people that don't know, when you went to Gaza, can you just tell us a little bit, about, you said it too, we're not, what we're seeing is like 5% of what's happening on the ground, if that. But can you tell us a little bit about what you witnessed, and what from when you were there led you to wanting to open the Phoenix School?
So first of all, thank you, and thanks to Eyewitness Palestine for all the work that you're doing. You were also on the ground, Nancy, and if I can just add one thing to my bio, I also happen to be the best friend of Nancy's daughter. I take that title very seriously.
She is, and I'm going to add it to your bio.
She has a birthday coming up. Can we just put that out there? So yeah, when the first time I went in, actually we were I think the first people to sort of introduce this idea of taking as many suitcases as you could possibly fit. I think there was an announced sort of limit or suggestion, and everybody was kind of respecting that. And of course, we push the limits as much as we can, and instead of the 4 suitcases, I think I had like 22, and they all got in the first time. And so I went in the second time with over 40 suitcases. So I thought that was a role, even though it's, Nancy, it's a drop in the bucket of the need. But for the people who get, whether it's vital medication or special food because for genetic disorders, or if it's diapers or shoes, all of these things are like in low supply, it means the world. So I thought initially that was the role I was going to fulfill, to just come in and out with supplies and help set up programs and things like that and work with children. And then I left the second time with plans to go back in to sort of restock and go back in. But then, of course, Israel invaded the crossing and took that. And so we were left working from afar. And I had actually, we were kind of all over the place. And like I did workshops with writers while I was there, and hopefully that anthology is going to come out soon, to write their own stories, because I think that Palestinians should be the ones narrating this moment in history. And we set up some food kitchens. We helped stock up some medical points. We're kind of all over the place. We also funded a bunch of children's activities for psychological first aid. I brought in a projector on my second trip, and we were having movie nights for children and things like that. And then the loss of school and both as education as a reference of hope and ambition and future. I think that is what distilled in my mind as a really important place to focus. And that's where the idea for the Phoenix School was born. And so I assembled a team of some folks that I worked with when I was there. And we hired some teachers. So now it's grades 1 through 4 with the full curriculum. And grades 5 and 6 have a special creative sort of expression where they're basically reading novels together. They are writing, and that group is able to get actual like studies and lessons elsewhere at this point. So there's 120 students overall. And they're doing well. I mean, I heard from some of the parents there was one family that was actually planning to, they got an opportunity to move to a much bigger tent in a different area, away from the the beach area that's just really sandy and difficult to contend with. But they didn't want to leave the school, the area where the school is. So it means a lot to the people who have the benefit of it. And again, it's a drop in the bucket for the need. I mean, there's over 1 million children, and we're serving 120. But that's what we can do, and for now, that's all we can do. We are hoping to expand it, but for those 120 students, I think it seems to mean everything right now.
Thank you. There are so many questions flying around that I know people are probably thinking. Just one to just throw in there is how is the building that they're in safe? A lot of people are probably looking and saying, well, isn't everything, how is it safe? And if at any point, because we know that nowhere is really safe, I think we both witnessed that too, but if anything, God forbid, was to happen in the area, is there a plan that it would move the school? And what would that look like?
Yeah, so no place is safe is the bottom line. We know that. The school is located in it's actually in the bottom floor of a home that was partially bombed, but is still standing. The family that lived there before is still living there on the top floors, and they sort of covered up. They did a makeshift. It's still mostly structurally intact, and safe, and they're renting out the bottom portion of their home to have an income. So that's where it is. And because we started the school in the summertime, the tents were like ovens, which was just not conducive for learning at all. And we wanted to have the school be in an actual building, because everybody's living in tents for the most part, and it's just being in a structure is itself a kind of psychological refuge for kids. The area was threatened a couple of times, and so we have some funds set aside as a contingency, and everything is sort of they made a plan to how to pack everything up and load it and get it out, to move somewhere else. And that's the best we can do. But the bottom line is no, they're not safe, but they are as safe as they can be in that situation.
Thank you, hon.
I also want to say too that every single one of the students, all of the teachers, without exception, have all lost a lot of family members, not even just one or two, a lot. And a large portion of the students themselves were pulled. I think it's like more than 75% were pulled from under the rubble. There's one young man, we're going to start doing profiles on each of the students. And one of the young men was literally the only survivor in his family. So the students are there with not just having lost a year, now we're going on 2 years of schooling, but they've lost their home, they've lost family members, they've lost their sense of safety, their sense of a future. So they're all really, to say traumatized doesn't feel like a big enough word, but they are showing a lot of improvement, and that's one of the things that we're trying to document as well. In just, in just the friendships that they're making and the bonds that they're making, and just getting back into a routine where they get to be kids and they get to feel their worth, and their right. Their right to be children, their right to learn, their right to have a place dedicated to their well-being in their future.
1000%. The format is very non-traditional. And just to, clarify for people that are that may not know, that aren't into reading and and writing, can you expand a little bit on like what kind of role that plays for students and children in general? And also how that work ties into the work that you've done with Playgrounds for Palestine.
Yeah. So the grades 1 through 4 is more or less traditional, with the added aspect of creative expression. I think even here in the United States, I mean, the value of the arts and the humanities and the importance of instilling a love of reading is really, it's just underappreciated, I think. So, so in that sense, maybe it's not traditional, in that it's not solely focusing on, math and science and language. There is a heavy focus on creative expression, which I think is really important for traumatized kids. We're placing an emphasis on having them just have diaries. Actually, this was a massive expense, but I insisted on it because notebooks are in like short supply. So what might have been like $2 before is now $20. But we bought those notebooks so kids can have a place to write down whatever they want to write down. And so just, I mean, I'm a writer, and so maybe I'm biased in that way, but I think giving children an outlet for whatever stirs inside of them is really important. And so writing and art and drawing, and there's also like we have a lot of turath things that are also part of that, which is there's like tatriz. There was, they have like heritage classes where they do tatriz is embroidery. They did an outing recently for an olive harvest. I'm also and this is just now getting developed, to have somebody in an expert field come and speak to them once a month. So for example, I'm working on getting folks from Sulala, the animal shelter, to come and talk to them about animals and about kindness towards animals, and how to develop emotional bonds with animals, and to start to see animals in a different light than just things. Or we've had a muzara, a farmer rather, come and talk to them about creating like urban gardens and how they can grow their own food, and teaching them those skills. So yeah, so we're trying, I mean, that's the non-traditional part. And I think that just basically imparting life skills for people who have to deal now with not having basic amenities like electricity and water and food.
I was gonna say, yeah, life and survival.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
Excuse
is
me, I'm walking because I have to let my dog in. He's yelling outside.
the level of maturity of Palestinian kids, just, having been going all my life, and also doing this work for 20 years, there is a different level of maturity in Palestinian kids, I feel like. And this is a lot to do with the occupation and the things that they face and the things they have to do. I mean, my dad had to start working at 8 years old. He was born in 39 and he had to start working to bring money home because they lost everything. So, kids in Palestine prior to last year, for the last 75 years, have been forced to grow up a lot faster than any other kids I've met personally. I'm sure there are places in the world that are war-torn that has caused that there too. But their level of maturity is super high. And I'm wondering, are you seeing that like translated into their writings? Are they writing like kids? You know what I mean? Or are they writing stuff that you're like, wow, like, a grown-up couldn't articulate this? I'm just wondering like what kind of levels they're on, even, the young
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to second what you're saying on that. And like even sometimes I'm shocked. Like you hear from the videos we see the kids in the middle of like this extraordinary life event of like burying both of your parents and your grandparents. And the things that come out of their mouth sound like they're 70 years old. Um so yeah, in a big way, our kids sort of skip childhood. And they're thrust into becoming the breadwinners even. Um, but so in terms of, I have not actually seen their writing yet. In part because what I assured them and I told the teachers to promise this is that these notebooks are their private thoughts and they only get read if they want to share. So yeah, so I think I mean I would like to read them at some point, but it'll only be if they give us permission, whatever, because yeah. So I haven't seen them yet, but that's a really good question and I'm kind of curious about the answer now.
Do have them write something that you're gonna read, you know what I mean? Like, hey,
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I'd like to maybe ask them, see if they can assign to write an they're reading so the novel reading group decided to read my novel first of all.
good.
And I know that they're having they were having some issues at first sort of comprehending some of the language and stuff. But this is the translation. And but now the teacher that is reading it is doing the novel stuff with them, told me that they're grasping it and they're like a little bit shocked at how similar things that happened to their grandparents are to their reality now. So I think maybe when they finish it, it would be good to ask them to write an essay about that. So thank you for that assignment.
Anytime. I want to ask you, how did you come up with the name to let people know too, we're going to open up Q&A, so please throw any questions that you may have into the chat, and we will get to the Q&A in a few minutes. But how did you come up with the name Phoenix?
So we were all I asked everybody to make their suggestions and I threw my suggestion into the pool. In Arabic it's Madrasat al-Anqa or Madrasat al-Faniq. And they didn't know what a anqa was. And when I explained to them what it was and they did their own research about it, they all voted and decided that was the name they wanted to. I don't know if it was because I picked it or what, but that's what they
No
ended.
pressure. Do you have plans? I mean, obviously we all wish for an end to all of this ASAP. But do you have plans? Like, are you hoping to be able to expand into different areas? I know that it's not easy because it's not cheap right now. Like even, I'm sure just getting the space because it's a safe space and it's someone's home. I know there's so many stages to be able to get in there and keep that. And I know that it's not cheap because there's places are scarce to be able to rent anyway. Um, But do you have a bigger vision to be able to expand this in, into different areas and open more schools and serve more kids?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've talked about it, but I think we're still like there's still like some kinks and wrinkles that we're ironing out with the school, and also finding the right people is really important, and the right places, just the spaces, like I'll tell you, like money transfer, getting money to people is really difficult. So we transfer the funds, but even then, like because there's such a siege on Gaza, there's no cash. So you can't there's nowhere to get like currency. What currency is there, as you can imagine, is slowly sort of disintegrating. There's a reason like old currency is taken out of circulation and new money is printed, is because they get torn, they get worn, they get, messed up. And so that's what's left. So their currency is not available. And so they've sort of they're doing this system now. It's called tatbiq, which is like they're transferring from one account to another, and it's electronic, but there's still a lot of problems with that because you need internet for that. Not everybody has internet, and it's because Israel destroyed the communication towers. So it's really messy. And then there are points of getting, like, in order to get any kind of currency out or get your money out from the account, because there's no currency, it's at a high premium, and you have to pay like almost 20% of the value to
It's up to 30 now.
Yeah.
30% right now on anything.
Yeah, so these are all problems that we're facing. And then, like, I'll tell you like another thing. At one point, everybody in the school had lice. And we were asked to like get lice shampoo, but there's no lice shampoo. There's hardly any medicine, period. And there's actually no shampoo either. And so we actually paid to get some like locally made shampoo, which turned out to like not even lather, and it was just kind of a mess. But like these are the problems people are facing. Like everybody in the school got lice, and they did finally figure out a way to avoid everybody shaving their head. But that's what it was getting to. And so things that nobody would things you never think about are just, you have to contend with the smallest things there. Just water, bathing, food, having clothes, having shoes, coming to school with shoes, but despite all of that, when I asked them to create a video that shows the spirit of the school, they all dressed in their finest. Like they just got the best, cleanest clothes that they had, shoes. I know that 3 of the students borrowed shoes for this film, for this like little reel that they did. And they decided to take a field trip to do olive harvest, and to kind of do what our ancestors did, because it's during the harvest season. And that's what they did the video of. So they're not trying to like, they still like, they still have that dignity, they want you to, they don't want people to feel sorry for them. They want to just live in dignity, and they just, showed not their suffering, but their joy. So that was them. That was what they decided, what they voted, that they picked to make the video about. It could have easily been about how hard their lives are or and whatnot, but that's not what they picked. So I thought was really interesting.
Sounds very
That
Palestinian.
video, do you want to show that video?
Which one?
It's that's the olive harvest one. It's
I'm
in
looking for it.
it's in the PFP reels. I think it's the here, I'll show you and see here.
Do you know what the last 3 digits of the thing are? Because I see a bunch that came through.
Yeah, what do you mean last 3 digits? It has 78 likes on it. It's the 4th one in a row.
I've got it.
You got it?
Yay. And we're up to 864. You know, please donate if you can. We'll throw the donate link in again into the chat. We truly appreciate trying to be able to we're just trying to reach 1 month of operations in this school to keep them going. So if you can donate, please do. And the link will go up in just a moment into the chat.
That can't
اليادي 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 بدي غني لبلادي قاعدة تحت الزيتونة تسوى المحيط الهادي اليادي 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 بدي غني لبلادي قاعدة تحت الزيتونة تسوى المحيط الهادي زيتونتنا لا تنسوها وبالمجد زينوها أجدادي زرعوها أجدادي زيتونتنا لا تنسوها وبالمجد زينوها أجدادي زرعوها أجدادي اليادي 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 بدي غني لبلادي قاعدة تحت الزيتونة تسوى المحيط الهادي
anyway, yeah.
Would you like to show the video from the beach as well?
Sure, yeah. Actually, the beach one is the novel class.
Okay.
I wish there was a way to make these bigger.
Yeah, give me a moment to see if that's possible, and then we can come back to the video. I'll pass it
Okay.
to you.
All right, sounds good.
And during Christian's investigation into how to make that bigger, I will push for people to keep donating. We are going to match whatever we receive. So please give what you can. We do have a link that you can go to. It's where you signed up for this webinar, but if you just scroll down and do make an additional donation, it will all be going towards a Phoenix school in Gaza. So please do donate whatever you can. And also feel free to pull up the Playgrounds for Palestine website, sign up. And that way, if you want to continue to support their efforts with that school, you can do that directly as well for future donations. While we do that, I wanted to where are we? Let me see if I can no, I can't.
By the way, just FYI, like the bulk of the amount that we need every month is going to salaries, and the next big expense is the rent of the place. So the salaries are coming out to and they get very little. So we have 4 teachers and 3 administrators.
Hold on, stop right there. So you got 7 staff.
Yeah.
So if operating for the whole school, right, supplies, rent, and staff is $6,000, and you have 6 staff, they're getting, even if it was just salaries, is less than.
I know, exactly.
I mean, like, people
So
have
the
to really.
salaries are really low. Like they deserve so much more. But that's, so a lot of what they're doing is even, it's way below what they're worth. But what we're paying them is actually more than what is being paid now, because there's just no money. So for example, like the highest paid teacher is $600 a month. There's a administrator that who is also a teacher and running things. She gets 900. And so, I want to try and bring up their salaries. We also have a day worker who is basically, he helps keep things in order. He does logistics and kind of security as well. So with time, I mean, because these teachers are amazing. I mean, the things they're doing, they're so creative. They're making things out of nothing to teach the kids. So yeah, so it's salaries and rent, and then we have, obviously the books and stationery, pens, pencils. We provide all of that, and just supplies for the school. So we're really stretching every penny, and my hope is to both increase their salaries and expand the school. I think that treating the staff well and giving them what they deserve is part of the expansion and retention of the school. And I think, I mean, honestly, it's been such a success and so well received that even after this genocide is over, I mean, Gaza has nothing right now. We're going to keep going with it and just saving as many kids as we can.
Well, we are up to $1,101, so let's keep going. Thank you, everybody. And again, every penny counts, so it doesn't matter how little or how large, everything counts. So please do keep giving. I believe Christian has the full screen option.
I do.
Go ahead.
It's still a little small, but it's bigger than what we saw before. Just give me one moment.
وهدي يا بحر هدي طولنا في غيبتنا ودي سلامي ودي للأرض اللي ربتنا وهدي يا بحر هدي طولنا في غيبتنا ودي سلامي ودي للأرض اللي ربتنا
وحشاني الدنيا في بلدي عايزة أروح بلدي وافتكر اللي كان وحشاني اللمة الحلوة والليل لما بيعزف غنوة لليلة حب كمان.
It's so beautiful.
That's Basma. Basma.
Oh, Habibti. Basma lost her nephews and nieces, right? I met her brother.
And her uncles. She just recently lost her aunt and her uncles, خالها وخالتها, some of her cousins.
Didn't they bomb her house? Like, I believe after a few days after I left, wasn't she under the rubble?
Did. Yeah, yep. They bombed her house. They before. Did you go to her house when you were there?
I didn't get a chance to, no.
So her house was the only, like, all the buildings around her were bombed. They were her family members, and then when Israel entered Rafah, they bombed her house too. And it's funny because one of the things that like drove them finally, nuts, the whole family, it's really interesting, like the things that it's almost like the needle, whatever, that broke the camel's back. What's that saying?
The straw.
The straw, thank you.
Brother.
That broke the camel's back. So they demolished her house. They bombed it and then they demolished her house. They stole everything in there. But they had this one of those, those hanging chairs, those hanging wicker chairs, that the soldiers filmed themselves. They stole it. They hung it from one of their tanks or something, and they were sitting in it. And it was on social media, and she recognized it was theirs. And so, and she had all of these photos of her kids on it, and her deceased brother, martyred brother, and his kids, and suddenly these soldiers are sitting in it, and that, so that was, I mean, that's, that that kind of undid her in a way, and I think it made all the loss sort of just come, flooding through her. But yeah, it's just these humiliations on top of this incredible loss that people are enduring. And then to see on social media these soldiers desecrate your memories, desecrate even, you know what I mean? And the humiliation that women feel when these soldiers go into their homes and put on their lingerie. There were a couple of women that I talked to, they were like, I pray just day and night that they don't go into my house. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't think that would be the most important thing on their minds, but it is. Like, when you stop and think about it, it's like this most private, sacred part of your life that is meant to just be between you and your spouse suddenly become this very public, very humiliating thing for the whole world to see. It's massive. It's not just these depraved soldiers just, parading in lingerie and whatnot, which is totally like just bizarre. I don't think we've seen anything like it. And this obsession with both like women's and male sexuality. You know what I mean? Like, they're always hitting them on their genitals. They're raping them systematically. I don't know. I don't know that we've seen anything like it before.
We've never had camera phones when things like this have happened.
Yeah.
And so it's absolutely wild. The fact, what gets me the most is not that they do that, because I've heard stories of that from my dad and my aunts, and you know what I mean, from back in the 40s, right? And stories obviously of, like Hamad Abu Khadir. I was there when Ali Dawabshi, 18-month-old baby, was burnt to death by settlers. So it's not like, what's wilder to me is the fact that they film themselves doing this and post it with like absolutely no worries. The fact that they're committing war crimes, you know what I mean? Like, they're just like, whatever, I'm allowed
That's what I'm
to rape
talking
because
about.
Israel's allowed
That's
me
the
to rape.
unprecedented. Yeah.
It's that's the part that really gets me, is like, wow, like, you really don't care, like, you have no shame, like, whatsoever. Like,
It's even about shame, Nancy. It's the fact, like, this is what I mean about the unprecedented part, because there, this kind of depravity is war crimes is not unprecedented. But what is, to me, is the kind of glee and pleasure that not only these soldiers derive from it, but seemingly the entire society. Like, the only corollary in my mind are the photos of white Southerners who would be laughing and sort of gleeful under a lynched Black man or Black woman hanging from a tree, and then them exchanging these photos as Christmas cards. But I also think that that was just a portion of American society, because we also know the way that the United States came to a standstill when Mrs. Till showed Emmett's open casket, right? The shock of that in the United States. So, but that doesn't translate in Israeli society. They see what's happening. They see our babies coming out without heads, with missing parts, with shredded, and they are deriving a kind of pleasure from that. You see that in their morning talk shows, talking about killing the babies. Like, that's the unprecedented part. That is the part that I don't think anybody has ever, that in history, that there has never been anything like it, that is so public, with even Nazis. Like, I think the German population had plausible deniability because it was hidden. And when a lot of Germans said we didn't know, I think, they could say that because they didn't see it. But here, Israeli society sees it. They see this Holocaust in the full and high definition. And rather than recoiling from it, they are advocating for more, or they think it's perfectly legitimate. And to the point that they had riots to insist on their right to rape Palestinians systematically. Like, that's the unprecedented part, I think, to me.
1,000%. uh, I see Allah said, do Israelis actually see the horrific? Yeah, they do. They definitely do, because there are people in 48 that are also protesting here and there, being smashed, but trying. And there's no way. I mean, there's absolutely no way that they wouldn't see it. I mean, your feeds on social media go by what you look at. And essentially I would be very, very shocked if somebody was in 48 lands and said, "Oh, I didn't see what was happening." Not to mention that the entire country has to go to the military. So there's somebody in their family that's in the military. So there's absolutely no way. So yeah, they see that's the part the whole world sees. That's the part that is like the most sickening, is like, how do people see and are not moved to change, or even have the audacity to even try and justify any of the like that, you know what I mean? Because people are out there really trying to justify this, when there's protests of us saying, stop, stop murdering Palestinians, and there's people out there to protest that, to make excuses for us saying stop slaughtering our people, stop burning and beheading and killing babies and women and men. And yet there are people that have enough hate in their heart to organize themselves to come out and protest us protesting death. That's how wild it is. And they definitely see it on their TV, because actually one of their biggest TV stations, was it Channel 2 or Channel 4? Huge show, talk show, had the lead rapist in those 9 that filmed themselves and posted it to social media. They had him on there like a celebrity after the Knesset had a discussion on whether it was okay to rape Palestinians. And so he was celebrated and blessed by a rabbi, I believe, for his acts on TV, on Israeli TV, on one of the main stations. I think if you Google, Israeli soldier rape celebrity TV show, Channel 12, there you go. Thank you, Muhammad. Channel 12, which is one of the main channels, they had him on there. So, I mean, they've seen everything.
Also, a lot of these soldiers are using their photos in Gaza on dating sites, like on Tinder. And so, yeah, of course they know. And then, there was that TikTok craze where they were mocking Palestinians. So obviously they're seeing.
They are.
Looks like Evelyn has her hand up.
Evelyn. Oh, there you go. You can speak now.
Susan and Carol, Susan, because I'm thinking of Carol Mansour, Susan and Nancy. This is very difficult for me to bring up. I think it's really necessary in some way to bring up the violence on both sides in order to be, it's just to me,
Is that necessary? And
can I just,
sides.
Susan, this is not an argument. This is just my feeling. And I totally honor what you're saying and experience incredible empathy. And I don't expect Palestinians to sympathize with Israelis. The unequalness is just outrageous. It's just that violence was committed on October 7th. So why?
Can I just ask a question, Evelyn, before you go to October 7th? If we want to address the violence on October 7th, then we must address the violence for the last 75 years.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with
once
that.
we address
I agree.
that, you know what I mean? Because but the reason I say that is, and I'm you know,
Nancy.
Absolutely.
I can't agree more. Reading your book, Susan Abulhawa, I've read more than one, and I know that I've watched programs that Israeli soldiers, even in 48, they'll say, oh, I didn't do it, but I saw somebody else do it. So the violence goes back so far. So there's no question. And that really, I honor what you're saying, Nancy, totally.
And I just want to say, like, we still haven't got justice for, my great-grandfather who was shot in the head, and we never got our home back in Haifa, that my family had to flee from. And, it's this notion of, like, I understand people go back to this point of October 7th, but it's almost like it's this brand new thing. And we haven't, even just the two names that I mentioned earlier, Muhammad Abu Khdir, who was kidnapped from outside his home in Jerusalem, a 16-year-old, and had gasoline poured down his throat and lit on fire and burnt to death, never got justice for his family. Ali Dawabshi with his parents, who were burnt to death, and still till today threats are made to who was 4 at the time and I believe 11 now, his brother Ahmad, who they keep threatening to finish off, in their words. There's been people, it's almost like I say, like, we're not numbers, but it's almost like people just keep brushing past this, and then want us to talk about October 7th. I mean, every action, 9 times out of 10 will get a reaction. And until we can address the deep 75 years of horrendous violence and rape.
But you're not. Evelyn, I hear you saying you're with, but you're actually not. And there is an element of two-siding this and wanting to understand how Israelis feel. But let me ask you, so, there was an uprising in the Warsaw Ghetto.
Yeah.
And it was violent. Are we meant to say that we need to address that violence in order to understand, in order to talk about Nazi violence? Is that necessary?
I feel you're on the defensive, Susan.
Well, I am.
I'm not. I don't feel that you're engaging with me in conversation because it's so.
This feels like
it's so traumatic. I haven't
let me finish.
Experienced this.
Please let me finish. Please let me finish. Please let me finish. This is kind of like you're saying that I'm not engaging because, I mean, I'm talking. I'm not yelling at you. I'm not attacking you. I'm talking and I'm giving you my point of view. So I reject this idea that I'm not engaging. I'm literally engaging with your question, and I'm trying to explain to you the corollaries that somehow never get applied to us. And I think it's because we are so thoroughly dehumanized in public imagination. So it is really no different than trying to say that we have to address the violence of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising in order to understand Nazi violence. It's also the same as saying we have to talk about the violence of Native Americans who actually fought back quite brutally. That we have to, in order to understand settler colonial violence in this country, we have to address the other side of violence. And what I'm saying is, no, we don't. We do not. And to tell a colonized people who were quite literally being erased from the map, from history, by a group of people, no matter how much they claim to be the victims, are in fact a genocidal colonial movement by all objective evidence, is asking really something that you have no right to ask, frankly. That's and I hope that you will hear me, because I'm not going to engage in condemning the actual victims. I can sympathize and empathize with individual victims. For example, I can have sympathy, and I've said this before, I can have sympathy with the women and the children in the big house on the plantation, but I'm always going to root for Nat Turner. I can sympathize with the white settler women and her children who were scalped by Indigenous Americans, but I am always going to root for Native American warriors. And this is no different of a situation. And I think the reason people have a hard time conceptualizing this is because the media, Hollywood, book publishers, art institutions, everything in the cultural sphere has worked to plant this image of the eternal Jewish victim and the Arab terrorist. And that's where these arguments for two sides come from. Because the evidence is overwhelming of who the victims are and who the perpetrators are. But it's this sort of public indoctrination through decades of deploying this arsenal of cultural manipulation of public imagination that makes it difficult to comprehend. And actually, Edward Said wrote about this in an article called Victims of the Victims, or at least that was a phrase from it. And that's why it's hard to, I think, for people to really see reality for what it is.
Thank you, Susan. I don't want to derail too much, because this is about the school and the children in Gaza. And I really want to focus on that. We are also a little bit over time. I do believe, Hamad, you wanted to speak, and because I don't want to give anybody a chance to say.
No, thank you. Susan said it's perfect. I can't say it better. But Evelyn, I want to share something with you real quick. My name is Mohammed Qasim. I'm the communications coordinator here at Eyewitness Palestine. I grew up in Ramallah in the West Bank, and I basically moved to the US 5 years ago. From there, your question is valid when we talk about two fully equipped countries, for example, Ukraine and Russia, right? Let's talk about both casualties. Let's talk about collateral damage. But this question wasn't in the public when I was 15 years old, being attacked by settlers and Israeli soldiers. I am an American citizen, and I always wondered, where are the emails from the American Council that are coming from Jerusalem, the American embassy, that are talking about the suffering that my people are having? The morning of October 7th, 2023, I woke up and every single media outlet and news outlet was talking about the Nova Festival. Prior to that, nobody talked about me. The colleges I attended in the United States of America, for example, University of San Francisco, where I did my master's degree, on 2021, when the aggression happened on Gaza, the email we received as students was condemning the violence Hamas is conducting towards Israelis with no mentions of the Palestinians, right? It was always emails coming from the dean's office, from academic staff, talking about anti-Semitism, but where is anti-Palestinianism, right? And this long, endless work from Zionist lobbies and Hollywood on dehumanizing the Palestinians is basically evident in everyday experience to us. When I first moved here, I said I'm Palestinian. They thought I was Pakistani. Until October 7th, when I say Palestinian, the first question I get from mainstream white Americans is, what do you think of Hamas? And that's because of the media. So I don't think it's the job of Palestinians or Palestinian pro-Palestine allies to highlight what's happening on the other side of the apartheid wall that exists between both of us. And to the point, if they know or they know or they don't know, look at the census and look at the data that are coming out of B'Tselem, an Israeli organization, and Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper. 87% of Israelis are in support of the genocide in Gaza, right? So let's talk to Israelis and ask them about the other quote-unquote casualties that are happening. I believe your question came from the benefit of the doubt and from a good place, but all of us here, Nancy, Susan, and I, and Christian, we experienced that first-hand experience in Palestine. I lived what you're seeing on television, so I find it extremely offensive to be asked to talk about Israeli victims, right? When there's settlers occupying my homes and the homes of my grandma that died without being able to return to Haifa when we had a Polish family come from Poland in 1948. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. So I do want to just go back to the webinar. This webinar is about the children in Gaza. And although all of this is important to talk about, and actually, Susan, somebody asked, what's the name of the article you just named? Was it the Edward Said one?
Yeah, I don't remember the name. The title might be, if you type in victims of the victims, the comma, Edward Said, you'll probably find the article.
We'll share it with the update after this webinar. We truly appreciate everybody who has stayed on past the time. We appreciate everybody that has donated. We'll definitely be sending out updates, towards the end of the year, from this, from our support for the Phoenix School. And again, we will send out links for you to follow Playgrounds for Palestine, and hopefully be able to support them to continue supporting the school. And I really hope that we can have another webinar with you, Susie, and some updates, inshallah, with another school opening soon enough, or expanding and having more space for more students. I truly appreciate everybody's support. And we will be ending this webinar in 5, 4, 3.
Thanks, everybody.